1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the beat back.
Hello YouTube, QB99 here, with showing off a new deck from the new set. I know it's been a while, we haven't shown off any of our decks recently, but, you know, life is shitty in that way. So, here I am showing off one of my first decks I made with this new set. It's one of two. This deck is based off of a Phyrexian mana. I really like this because it really speeds up your game, especially with some of the higher costing stuff, and it can really screw over your opponent. Let's start. I do get requests of my deck list every once in a while, and I know the video quality is bad, and I do apologize for that. So I will try and state the name of each card clearly so you know exactly what I'm going over. First up is Suture Priest. Just a 1/1 white creature, you know, I mostly have him in here because you gain life whenever you have something come into play. Oh, and a quick mention. Even though this deck is predominantly only uses black and white mana, this deck has all 5 colors in it. And that's the great thing you can do with Phyrexia mana. No matter what color restrictions you're doing, as far as your mana, you can always use any color card. Example here would be Molten Steel Dragon. He costs 2 red Phyrexia mana, so I pay 4 life and I can still put him out, even though I don't have any red mana. Next up is Blinding Soul Eater. Just a 1/3 artifact creature that can tap a creature for 1 white or 2 life. Next up is a Cerebral Membrane. You know, if something big is coming at me, this thing will take it out. Couple Hex Parasites. You know, if a person has a Planeswalker, these could potentially kill it instantly. So those are definitely good to have, especially against an artifact deck that has a lot of cards that use charge counters, or any kind of counters. Next up is a Blind Zealot. Mostly you have him in here for the Intimidate and just because I can get rid of a creature if he deals damage to something. Spellskite. An interesting little artifact here. Any spell or ability that gets played, I can change the target to him. So if there's someone's targeting on my side that I don't want to die, I would target this little guy instead, and he'll just have to sacrifice himself. Got a couple Spine Thopters here. Again, blue card, but with the Phyrexian mana, I'm able to play it. Have him in here mostly because he's just flying. Phyrexian Metamorph. This is one of my favorites, because he can turn into any creature on the field, or any artifact too, which does come into play later. Have a couple Porcelain Legionnaires, you know, 3/1 first strike. Not bad for potential just 2 mana, 2 life. Pretty early. Lastly, I have a couple Vault Scourge here, mostly because of the lifelink. In a deck where you're constantly giving up life, you gotta be gaining life just as fast to stay even. As for the spells and artifacts here, first off, Birthing Pods, you know. If I have a Suture Priest out and he's about to die, sack him, bring out a Porcelain Legionnaire. If I have a Cerebral Membrane, same thing. If I have a Hex Parasite, sack it to bring out Suture Priest, or sack a Spellskite to play a Spine Thopter, you know. It can get me a creature I need out. That, granted, it costs 1 more than the one I sacked. Have some Marrow Shards. Actually, let's move that over here with the rest. 4 Marrow Shards. Pretty decent white counter card, 1 damage to everything that is attacking you. And with a Phyrexian mana, you could potentially play all 4 with 0 mana, so your opponent won't be expecting it. Yeah, you'll lose 8 life, but 4 damage to everything that's attacking you, that's bound to kill almost everything. Next up, a couple Mutagenic Growths. Again, another card that only costs one Phyrexian mana, so you can play it even when you have no mana out whatsoever. This is a big card, Rage Extractor. This deals, whenever you play a card with a Phyrexian mana cost in it, you deal that much damage to a player or to a creature. So this thing definitely required in any Phyrexian mana deck. Have a couple dismembers. This one is really good because it's -5/-5. It'll kill just about anything that's giving you trouble. All you need is 1 mana really to get it off, and it'll really come in handy in very tight situations. Couple war reports, like I said, gotta have that life gain in this deck. You gotta, there's no way around that. Norn's Annex, this is probably one of my favorite cards because it forces your opponent to either have white mana or pay 2 life whenever they attack you with a creature. And when I have 2 Norn's Annexes out, and these guys come into play as copies of it, that can rack up to a lot of life just for 1 creature attacking you, and it evens out pretty well. I have a Surgical Extraction here. I thought I had more in this deck, but maybe I took them out. But anyway, if your opponent has something in their graveyard that you don't want them getting back, or multiple copies of a card, then just play this and you'll get rid of all the copies. Again, another card you could play for free, or at least with just the loss of 2 life. Finally, 2 little artifacts here. Go over Pristine Talisman. Just taps for 1 colorless and gives you a life. I mostly have it in here for the life gain, not as so much the mana. And over here, Soul Conduit. This one is a fun card because if in a deck where you're just constantly giving up your life, you can kill your opponent by killing yourself. Use this card, or use all these Phyrexian mana cards to get your life down, and then just take your opponent's full life and give him your Whittle the Way life, and just hit him with anything you have here. You know, bring yourself down to 2, switch it with your opponent, send your opponent's down to 2, and you're all the way back up. Anyway, so that's my deck right now. Keep in mind, as with almost any deck in Magic, it's a work in progress. So any criticism, any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear. You know, I really do enjoy this deck. It's not as good as the other one I've made, which I'll show you in a moment, but, you know, I still have fun with it. I love the idea of the Phyrexian mana, that even though in a 2-colored mana deck, I can still have cards of almost any color. Anyway, I'm QB99, and that's my Magic deck.